And it might help to have you, if you have Facebook up on your end.
I do, yeah. It
And
says we are live.
Oh, excellent. We are live. Hi, everybody.
Howdy. This is Lorena, Synergy Behavior Solutions.
And I'm Sara McLoudrey, also from Synergy Behavior Solutions. We are trying closed captioning on the screen today. So there's going to be some things that are wrong, but we'd like to be accessible to lots of people, as many people as we can be. So please let us know if you're able to see it or not able to see it, or if you have questions about it. We'd love to hear. So our plan tonight was to talk about puppies. So if you have any puppy questions, please put them on the Facebook page so we can see that and we can hopefully answer as we're going along. But we're going to start out. Lorena, go ahead and start us.
So I'm going to ask Sara a question about puppies, and I think it's been a while since either of us has raised a puppy. Like, it's been a few years. But as an aside, I am looking at the captions and they are working on Facebook, so that's cool. Hey! And I think my question for you, Sara, as somebody who has worked in lots and lots of different realms in the dog training industry, with different kinds of dogs and for different reasons, what would you say are your top three, like, training or concept focuses when you first bring I don't know, when you first bring a puppy home?
Well, so Lindy's 3, so I have, like, not too long ago that I had a puppy. For me, because I live in a multi-dog household, I want to make sure that my new puppy feels comfortable in our house and that my other dogs feel comfortable. So Lindy spent a lot of time in a pen, separated away from the other dogs, make sure everybody was comfy. We did a lot of management that way. And then the first thing I really do is every meal is training time. So I do not free feed puppies at all. And I use that time. And usually, when they're baby puppies, when you first get them, they can't make it through a whole meal as training time. But it's amazing how soon they can. And in those early training sessions, it's, autofocus, paying attention, choosing to be with me. And then with Lindy, because my other dogs have a lot of body handling issues, I did a lot of work on body handling. I was planning on showing her in conformation. So that was part of it too, but I really wanted to make sure she was comfortable with having her feet touched and nails trimmed and everything like that. Because I know all the other stuff, if I can get her attention and be able to handle her, everything else is pretty easy. So what about you?
Well, I think that for me, the last couple of puppies that I've had, it's really been about, always trying to do better next time and learning from like, I don't want to say mistakes. I just like learning from information and choices that I might have made differently or will make differently. And I think that for my next puppy, I definitely want to be focusing on cooperative care is going to be a big part of that also. I think I would really like to, from square one, work a lot on consent and body handling. And I came into the dog training industry working for a local puppy training company. And so I did a lot of puppy classes, and it's a fantastic company. And I refer people there all the time. And I don't think that there are any puppy classes that I know of that really do any handling. Like, I touch on it. There's always like discuss, but we never really talk about how do we get these puppies who initially are pretty tolerant and then they get less tolerant. And it's usually around a year or so that people are like, oh, my dog used to let me trim her nails and now she's biting me. So I think it's being able to prioritize that is going to be pretty important for me. And also same, yeah, I definitely I try not to feed my adult dogs out of a bowl. I'll certainly be investing all of my puppy's daily food ration into training. But I think I also really want to focus on, because I have 2 reactive dogs, I want a non-reactive dog. But what I really mean by that, in terms of what I do want instead of what I don't want, is I really want a dog that is able to disengage from the environment and is able to be in novel environments and see novelty throughout her life and engage with it in a way that is calm and confident and relaxed. So a lot of just like other people and other dogs are a non-event. I can go into any new environment and be calm and settled, and not necessarily have to interact with everything. So that I can not have negative experiences. I can just they can just be. So I'm excited for that, I think, to figure out like how to shape that while still, you know, making sure that my puppy is getting enough mental and physical stimulation.
When I used to teach puppy classes at my training facility in Illinois, we had a whole day was dress the puppy day, and we made it fun. Like we had, you know, baby socks and t-shirts and all sorts of crazy stuff. And we'd have this contest of who could dress their puppy the fastest. And because we tried to make it fun, it was body handling in a fun way. And then I was always amazed that people would then take our adolescent class later on and they would still be having some issues with body handling. It's like, don't you remember that fun game we played? You could keep doing that and keep working on it. And so I think a lot of puppy, like you said, a lot of puppy classes touch on it, but clients don't realize how important it is. So somebody asked a question, how do you pick a puppy? I have a couple comments on how not to pick a puppy. So it's funny because when we were talking about this, I'm so glad you asked that question, Autumn. As soon as we had this topic, this was a story that I wanted to share. Many, many years ago, I had a client with a Bernese Mountain Dog, and from about 9 or 10 weeks old, they brought the puppy home, and the first people that they had come over to their house, they realized immediately that their puppy was not comfortable with people at all, and quickly was becoming actually aggressive towards new people in the house other than the two owners. And the reason they picked this particular puppy was because he was the puppy that sat in the back of the corner every time they visited, and they visited more than once, but he always hung in the back, and they thought he was going to be the easygoing, lazy dog, and that's why he was sitting in the back. But it was not. It was because he was really worried about the situation. And at a pretty young age, he was displaying some pretty significant aggression towards people coming in the house. So I can tell you that's not one of the ways to get a puppy, is to, you know, you don't want to take the odd puppy out.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. I hear a lot of the same experiences that people have. They're like, oh, we wanted the calmest puppy, but just because a dog is still or not approaching you does not mean that it is calm. And I think that's usually when people tell me, you know, even when I would be having puppy classes, I would always ask folks, where did you get your puppy? And if it was from a breeder, especially, I would say, did you meet the dog's parents? And I think, and you know, contrary to popular belief, it is not all in how you raise them. Genetics is very real, and it absolutely has an impact on behavior. And so I think it was Patricia McConnell who said, like, talking about this and kind of making a like tongue-in-cheek joke about how, you know, she'd be like, oh yeah, we got this puppy, and then she'll be like, oh, did you meet its mom? Oh no, she was like she was too aggressive, she was gonna bite us. So it's like, I probably wouldn't get that puppy also. And you know, if the breeder that you are meeting, like one of my Malinois client, for example, back in the day, was like, yeah, meet me in the parking lot of the grocery store in the little town off of 26, and I'll get the puppy out of my truck and hand it to you. Probably not also the greatest situation. Although saying that doesn't mean that you can't adopt a puppy whose parents and litter you didn't meet and not have a really great dog. I think that it's just about the information that you have available to you, take it all in, and take it all really seriously.
Speaking of genetics and knowing what the parents are like, actually, my water spaniel, Rizzo, Mary Thompson is here, and she knows Rizzo well also. I had met her mother. Actually, I actually never met her mother until I was already committed to a puppy, because they were in California. I was in Illinois. But a friend had met her, and she said she was very, not aggressive or fearful of new people, but very aloof. She was not engaged with new people. Very tolerant, fine, but not her thing. And so I uber socialized Rizzo as a puppy to be super social, because I was trying to kind of counterbalance that. And I went way overboard. So Rizzo thinks every person she meets should be her BFF, and she should fling herself at everybody. And so you can overdo it also.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, this is one of my favorite topics for sure when it comes to puppies, is the idea of socialization and the fact that it's like pretty widely misunderstood, I think. And lots of really fantastic pet guardians with really excellent intentions are maybe making not the best choices for like the future of their dog's like emotional safety and like manners. But But I think a thing that happens a lot that is a pretty common discussion in puppy culture that I really glad, if you don't know what puppy culture is, you should Google it. But there's a lot of talk about how we try to desensitize, and sort of I think the average person can kind of conceptualize what desensitization might be. But often through trying to desensitize a dog or a puppy, we often can actually sensitize them to the thing. And I think that's what's sort of happening in this like big pendulum swing toward like must socialize the puppy, is that for a lot of people means like my dog has to meet and love every single person and dog that they see, which is like not only often very unpleasant for lots of different types of breeds that are not interested in strangers, but also is super overwhelming for the average. I mean, for a person that would be overwhelming. For an adult human, like if I go to a conference and meet 20 people in an hour, my head's going to explode. But for a puppy, it's a lot for them to take in. So I think there is like this over socialization thing that is happening. And we see sometimes those dogs come to synergy when they no longer can regulate their emotions in the presence of like a new person or a new dog.
So Autumn asked, should I always crate train a puppy? And my answer, so this is interesting because there's a couple places overseas where they do not really crate train at all. Definitely here in America, we do. I am a strong believer in crate training and working on it slowly and systematically and making sure the puppy is comfortable, but also not just crate, but separation. So a pen, there's lots of ways you can separate to have that. My big reason that I crate train is safety in the car. I want my dogs to be comfortable being crated in the car. My dogs are always crated in a car for safety reasons. And then I also want to have them be comfortable if I need to contain them or do anything with them at the vet office recently we had those wildfires here. And in order to evacuate your house, you have to have your dog in a crate, things like that. The unexpected can really throw stuff at you. And I think crate training gives you a lot of flexibility in case of emergency.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that was Autumn Hicks. Hi, Autumn. Are you guys getting a puppy? I need to hear more about that. This is my very good friend back in Kentucky. So I want to say that, yeah, so in some countries, like in Sweden, crates are like completely illegal. You cannot put a dog into a cage, essentially. I do think that a lot of people use crates in a way that is not appropriate or ethical. But there's so many things that you can do that with. There are absolutely appropriate and ethical ways to use crates. And I think that for the average like working person in the United States who can't be home all day to hang out with their puppy for 6 months straight, a crate is pretty essential. I mean, I still use an exercise pen and a crate for my 5.5-year-old dog. The key is making them love it. And just as an aside, we did just release a really awesome short crate training video with my friend's puppy and Sara, just doing some really easy shaping about teaching the dog to love the crate. So having the crate as a safe place and also as a place where your dog does active rest. The average puppy that I meet does not get enough sleep. And that is why they're doing all of the really obnoxious puppy behaviors that 4 weeks into having a puppy, you're like, was it ever this hard? What have I done? Oh my gosh, demon in my house. It's usually because that animal is not getting enough sleep and they're getting all wired up. So making dogs run around until they pass out from exhaustion is not a great way to raise a puppy, but that's how I used to do it because I thought that was what you did. But actually putting them down for naps, like in a crate or in a pen, is essential for having like a balanced puppy in terms of self-regulation.
So Mary asked, and this is not too serious of a topic. I'm actually really glad you asked. It's like almost like I told you to ask this question.
I was going to say, yeah, it's great.
So Mary asked, what are some of the signs up for a young puppy to see a vet behaviorist? So we do see young puppies. We have seen puppies as young as 10 weeks old. Maybe, I don't think we've seen anybody younger than that, but definitely we have. We also have had, people get really worried about putting puppies on medications, and the medications are safe for puppies to be on. I have seen it myself. Talk to your vet or a vet behaviorist about it. But signs that I would want a puppy to see a behaviorist. Obviously, any aggression towards people would be a big one. Separation anxiety, and not just like I cry for a few moments when you walk away, or I'm a little upset when you leave me in the crate for a few moments. We're talking, flat out hysterics, crying. And then also I would say extreme fear. So, novel, anything in their environment, they're hiding, they're, anything like that. What other things can you think of, Lorena?
I think I was reading a comment. Did you talk about like unusual aggressive behavior?
Human directed, I did, yeah.
Puppies generally will display fear related behaviors that would be typical behavior if they're uncomfortable. If a puppy that is quite young is already lashing out, like intense growling and biting, then I'd be really concerned about that. Even with other dogs, that would be a little bit worrisome. And fear is not something that dogs just grow out of.
Right.
So if your dog is I want to say is unable to function. They're so scared that they cannot like function in a particular environment, then I would get to see a veterinary behaviorist sooner rather than later. It really doesn't hurt. Like you can't do any harm and being like, is this normal behavior? And it'd be really nice if the vet behaviorist was like, that is normal, your puppy is fine. But waiting to see means that you're probably going to have a more difficult road ahead of you. I definitely remember when my puppy Summer, I got him when he was 10 weeks. I remember 2 days after I got him, and if I knew then what I know now, I would have made a different choice, probably very different in terms of how I raised him. But I went to like sit outside of a bar with a friend, and it was a sunny day because it was like in July or August or something. And this little like hound puppy came walking by, and she was like, her owner said she was 16 weeks or something. And she came flopping over like a puppy and tried to say hi to Summer. And Summer just turned his face into the wall and tucked it away near my leg and would not interact with her. And I remember thinking like, huh, that's kind of weird. And then about a year later, I had a lunging, barking dog at the end of my leash. And I was like, what is wrong with my dog? So there are absolutely signs from a very, very young age often that these things are like kind of going to come up.
Another one that we have seen, I feel like lately we've seen a fair number of it, is young puppies with severe resource guarding.
Oh, yeah.
And so that would be another one. I mean, that falls into that human directed aggression, but a different flavor of human directed aggression. And so that is one too.
And I think that like a lot of puppies will show resource guarding. It's super normal behavior. But if your puppy is going from like, oh, don't take my thing, to like immediately biting or lashing out, then I'm more concerned. It should be something that you can fairly easily resolve. If your dog's a little bit worried about you taking stuff away, then your puppy trainer, because you are taking your puppy to classes and socials, will tell you to teach them to trade and feel good about having their things taken. But if your dog has really strong reactions to that, I would do it. The other thing is, for something that I've noticed since working for Synergy, which actually has been a year, like a little over a year, is that I've noticed that a lot of dogs that end up with challenging, like aggressive behaviors toward people or other dogs went through a traumatic medical or physical emergency when they were very young. So like if your dog gets super sick with like parvo when they're 12 weeks old, like my puppy did when I was a kid, or we had a client who's German Shepherd broke his leg at 4 months. And so like things that are pretty traumatic and require quite a bit of care and maybe involve a lot of pain or illness means that they miss out on critical socialization. And then they also have these really horrible associations with like maybe with being handled, with going to the vet, etc. I want to say, I think I saw a question we should have.
Yeah, Morgan asked about, she teaches puppy classes and seen a lot of fearful and nervous puppies.
Yeah.
Any advice to helping these puppies? And Kona's Touch, who actually used to teach classes with me, hi Laura, she put in there Puppy Town. And so that's what we used to call our area for puppies that were a little more shy or worried, that separated them out from the big rambunctious group. I hate to even say like we really worked on trying to destigmatize Puppy Town, because people who go to class and their puppy doesn't want to play with other puppies feel really weird and very self-conscious and very upset by it. Lindy, actually, my own dog, when she would go to puppy socials, she would like to play with one dog. She would pick out one dog that was similar in size, similar in temperament, and she would need to be in Puppy Town, separated away from the big rambunctious group of puppies. And that was what she preferred. She still is like that. She's not dog aggressive, but she's not like a social butterfly either. She likes her peeps, and that's about it. And so, really making sure that they are feeling safe and secure. And that's a situation where just feed your dog, having the clients just feed their puppy treats, because the people are waiting for their puppy to do something. It's like, just feed them treats for being here and breathing and helping them feel safe, I think was really important. And clients really had a hard time understanding to feed treats for no reason, which is funny. We're working on a meme about that right now. So what other, because you've taught puppy classes more recently, Lorena.
Yeah, I think it depended on the situation. I also, for sure, we had a little zen den. Sometime it'd be like, let's set up a pen for you and your puppy to have some space. And I think framing that in terms of advocating for the dog, and also just like, dogs are individuals. They like things and they don't like things. They have preferences. Some days they don't feel good. Other days they're like, I'm not really social today, and that's okay. And I think really normalizing that for people is so important, because I met somebody who just lives across the street from me, and she lives in an apartment. She adopted this like pitty from the shelter, like lovely dog, but really energetic. And she was like, I feel really bad because everyone is telling me to take my dog to the dog park to socialize it. And I was like, I'm going to tell you not to do that. And I think that what you are doing is exactly what you should be doing, where you've had the dog for 3 months and you're working on things like loose leash walking and building a relationship with your dog. And there's sort of this like belief, and I really think it's only in the last couple of decades, that dogs have to be like happy and bouncy and friendly to everyone all of the time, or something is wrong with it, like it's broken. And a dog is a dog, and they have preferences, and neither of my dogs would enjoy something like a puppy social, and that's okay, because they have other things that they do enjoy. So but that is different from the puppies that would show up and really I would be worried about them. Be like, okay, so your dog is like struggling a little bit more. I might say, come to 2 more socials. If we don't see improvement, if we don't see the puppy starting to choose to come out of their shell and they don't have to play, but starting to move around and be confident and make choices, then maybe we'd want to talk about a little bit more intervention for that dog.
And I look too at the difference. I think about actually when Lindy was a puppy, there was another puppy there who was also fearful of the other puppies, and he would aggress towards them. So if they came near him, he was being very aggressive, definitely trying to create space, even with a barrier up, and would lay under a chair and be very aggressive, things like that. Where Lindy would just like hang out and watch everybody, and like just be like, oh, cool, like they're over there having fun. That's awesome.
The dog I want.
Right. And also I would sit there and reinforce her for just like hanging out and watching, giving me attention. So part of it was also what I was reinforcing. But I think really working on those, making those people feel that it's okay that their dog is not super social, and how can they socialize without overwhelming their puppy.
I see Mackenzie is asking, what is the age cutoff for a puppy social? So a well-run puppy social is typically up to 20 weeks of age, sometimes through 20 weeks. And if the dog, if somebody adopted, at least at the place that I worked, if someone adopted a puppy quite late, like 16 or 17 weeks, we would sometimes make an exception and give them an additional week or so. But the reason that the cutoff is 20 weeks is because that's quite a few weeks after the so-called like critical socialization period, but also because at about 5 months of age, a dog's play style changes. So the way that a puppy will play when they're reaching adolescence looks quite different than the way that like a floppy little 12-week-old puppy might play. So it's important to make sure that there's a pretty good match. But a well-run puppy social cares less about age and much more about play style and temperament and size. Making sure that they're matching puppies appropriately. And it shouldn't be a puppy party. If you show up, and I'm not going to name the big box stores, but there are some that have puppy socials that it's just a big circle and everybody just puts their puppy down and they just run wild. That's not a positive experience for really any puppy. It should be pretty structured. Most of the ones that I would run, we would do a few minutes of play, and then we practice gotchas. We'd work on calmness, everybody settling back down, practicing a couple of games, and then go back to a little bit more play. And it's very hands-on. We're teaching a lot of disengagement. We're teaching puppies to read other puppies' behavior. We're doing consent tests, whether or not the puppy wants to continue engaging in play. And we are teaching dogs to walk away if the other dog says no.
The other, what's interesting for me coming to Portland versus in Illinois is that a lot of training organizations here have separate puppy socials from their classes. So you don't have to be in a class to attend their puppy socials, and they usually do break them down by weight, which is good, because if you have a 16-week-old Yorkie puppy and there's a 16-week-old Labrador puppy or a Mastiff puppy, those are very different dogs. And then we're looking at safety issues too. I am a big believer that puppy social should happen on padded floors and not on cement, but unfortunately a lot of training facilities have cement. Hi, Yosh. Yoshi's modeling off her very fabulous Buma's muzzle. And so, yeah, because puppies can get injured easily, I don't like to see them slipping and sliding on slick floors. But that sometimes is not a lot that you can get involved with. Yeah, Mary said the 16-week-old Leonberger that came to her class. Yeah. Yes, that would be.
Anna says Cleo had parvo, almost died, and really struggled with the novelty since she missed out on key socialization periods. Yeah, for sure. I had a puppy that died of parvo when I was 8, and then we had our German Shepherd puppy that survived through it, but her behavior was not great when she got older. So that's totally a thing. Does anybody else have any other questions? We have a few minutes left to sort of like wrap up before we've been talking for a long time. I love it. I get to sit here all day and talk about puppies.
Right. Oh, someone says, I hate the social class separation. It would be much better for us to have a hybrid model where we learn to switch between play and work and settling around other dogs. Yeah. Hi, Granda. Say hi to Obi for me. Yes. Sometimes when we have those separate puppy socials, the dogs, especially for dogs like Obi, who is a very outgoing, energetic dog, they then see the puppies as every time I see a puppy, it's party time. And so definitely there's that mix that needs to happen.
I worked for Plucky Puppy here in Portland, and that's absolutely how we would do it. We definitely had socials that were different from the classes, but we always had short play sessions during class to teach the dogs that sometimes you get to say hello, and most of the time you don't. And I think that for puppy socials too, I wouldn't like release puppies to play until everybody was calm and settled. And we practice a lot of returning to your mat with a chew and things like that. I think that's an important piece for sure, to make sure that the dog isn't learning a particular level of arousal in a particular space or a particular context. That's also why I think that a well-run social should be encouraging light to moderate arousal play. There shouldn't be any high-speed chasing and like lots of growling and intensity. You need to keep it like fairly chill.
So Mary had a question. Oh yeah, and Mary had a question about what to avoid in a breeder. Red flag, those are kind of actually they're not too far off of each other.
Yeah.
You're ready for a puppy. This is actually, I'm going to let Lorena answer that question because Lorena thinks she's ready for a puppy and wants another puppy.
For a puppy. So I think it depends on your living situation. So I know Autumn fairly well. I know right now she has 2 young boys, quite energetic. One of them really loves animals. I think they both like them quite a bit though. They're both full-time teachers and they are going back to school pretty soon to teach. So I would say that if you live in a house with small children, I think it's really important to remember that getting a puppy is like having another infant. So in terms of work, you have to be thinking about like, okay, we're going to be spending most of our free time and like juggling the kids and juggling the dog. And that totally doesn't mean it's not possible. I think it's just important to remember that for the first 6 months to a year or so, it's like pretty intense kind of constant work, making sure that you have somewhere for the puppy to be getting appropriate like exercise and socialization during the day if you are working all day. But I know that you have a summer coming up, so that's like a pretty nice time to be able to start working on stuff for the dog. And in terms of having small children, I would say that the average like 4 or 5+ year old can absolutely participate in positive reinforcement training. And at about 4 or 5 years of age, the average kid can start to understand why rules are in place and follow them. And that would be rules around appropriate handling and appropriate interactions with the dog. And I think it's a really great opportunity to teach young children about consent in interactions, and also a really great opportunity to teach them about reading dog behavior so that they can be safe moving forward. However, I also would generally anticipate and expect that the goal when you have small children and a puppy or any dog in the house is them being coexisting peacefully and not necessarily interacting. So gated community is pretty essential, and making sure that practicing lots of calmness for everybody. And then of course, being intentional about the dog that you pick. So remember that breed traits are really important. And so if you are going to have children around, pick a breed that is pretty resilient and pretty friendly. And that is, this is something I talk about a lot because I when I taught puppy classes, there was always one in the class. There's always a family that would come. And I'm not talking about a specific family, it's a type. And it would usually be like mom, dad, and a couple kids. And the kids are like, maybe like older kids, teenagers, like preteen. And they would always be like, we're an active family. So we got a German short-haired pointer, or we're active family. So we got a Vizsla. And then about 3 weeks later, they're all like exhausted and arguing and very haggard. And this is the difference between an active family and a busy family. So if you're busy, make sure that you're picking a breed, or even an older dog potentially, or at least if you're going to get a puppy, a breed that you know is going to be able to thrive with the amount of attention and time that you can realistically give it. So making sure that you're probably on the like more tolerant end of the spectrum when we're busy with kids and stuff. And then in terms of the other dog in the house, I do know that they have another dog. She struggles a little bit with some like human-directed reactivity in the past, but she's very small. So remembering too that when we have a dog that's already in the house, they don't get to have a say if the puppy is entering the space or not. And so anticipating or expecting them to be BFFs generally is not a great recipe. So instead, again, working on like peaceful coexistence. So gated community, can these dogs exist together? And for the puppy, at least in my house, it will be a focus of many, many months of not interacting with the other dogs until the puppy is able to self-regulate and Yoshi is being appropriate. So yeah, I think those are like the important things to think about, is like being intentional about the dog that you pick. And I absolutely love rescues and adoption. And also, if you have kids in the house, I think that it's a really good idea to like consider finding a really reputable breeder who raises puppies in a way that that is going to lend itself toward positive relationships with the kids.
Yeah, definitely. And as a breeder, when I did have my one litter and was planning on other litters, I did not sell to families with kids under the age of 5, because I think it's just too much, especially with sharp puppy teeth and then kids screaming and running and things like that. Mary made the comment of, if you're a busy home, bring home a lovely 5-year-old mixed breed who's been in a nice foster home. And I like that, the foster home caveat too. So you kind of know a little bit more about what they've done in their house. I want to answer Mary's question about breeders, but I think we're going to have to save that for another day. I think we could do a whole Facebook Live about, those kinds of things. So I think we probably need to wrap up. I can tell my son would like dinner. So he's gotten home from baseball practice.
All right, so much for joining us.
Yes, and if you have additional questions, please put them in the comments. I will actually answer some of Mary's. I think both Lorena and I can make some comments towards Mary's question about red flags for breeders. Totally. And it's not just the breeder, it's about who they are breeding also. So I have some red flags about that too. And so, yeah, definitely. Awesome. And if anybody has any ideas on what you would like the next trainer chat to be about, you could shoot that to us too. And I think next month in April, we are doing a chat with Dr. Volley about vet behavior. So it will be Ask the Vet Behaviorist. So if you have any questions about medications or when your dog should come see us or another vet behaviorist or whatever, please, we will tune in for that. Any other closing remarks, Lorena?
Ask for help. Nobody,
yes.
Because you've had dogs your whole life doesn't mean you know how to raise a puppy. And the vast majority of people who think that they do, they get a puppy and they're like, I was not prepared for this. So be prepared before you even bring your puppy home, that you know where they're going to go to training, you know, like what their day is going to look like, you know, exactly how you want to train, you've read the books, etc. We actually have a Raising Puppies During COVID webinar that you can watch on demand that I did at the beginning of kind of the COVID situation, which is actually about how I think everybody should raise puppies regardless of whether there's a pandemic. And also, we will soon have a new dog now what webinar that has some really great suggestions for books and resources to get ready for your dog.
Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for joining us tonight, and have a great evening, and we'll see you soon.